The crate that killed Eliza Chen contained one perfect sphere and the remains of something that had once been alive. She wasn't supposed to be digging in the northern quadrant. The colony administrator had marked it off limits after the third excavator disappeared into a sudden sinkhole. But 6 months on Kepler, 442b, or Nova, as the marketing department had branded it, had taught Eliza that regulations were often the bureaucratic equivalent of a child's nightlight, comforting illusions against the vast darkness. "What do we have here?" she whispered, brushing fine ochre dust from the metallic surface. The discovery wasn't luck. She had analyzed soil composition reports, cross-referenced atmospheric anomalies, and tracked magnetic disturbances that other colonists had dismissed as instrument errors. There was a pattern here, a ripple in the natural order of this world that reminded her of the archaeological digs she'd supervised on Earth. Nova was supposed to be pristine, uninhabited, humanity's fresh start after Earth's slow decline. That was the promise that had brought 5,000 colonists across 26 light-years of void. The marketing brochures never mentioned alien artifacts. Eliza activated her comm unit. "Chen to base. I found something at coordinates in 42.18, W103.45. I need a containment team and Dr. Okafor." Static answered her. The northern ridges always played havoc with communications. She'd have to bring this back herself. The crate was seamless, no obvious opening mechanism, no seams or hinges. Its surface reflected the alien sun with a dull luster that suggested an alloy unknown to human metallurgy. Eliza ran her scanner over it, and the readings fluctuated wildly before settling on an age estimate that made her breath catch .186,000 years, plus or minus 2,000 years. "Impossible," she muttered, but the scanner was adamant. This object had been buried here long before humans had built their first cities on Earth. The containment case in her rover was meant for geological samples, not potential first contact artifacts, but it would have to do. With practiced movements, she secured the crate and logged her findings, hyper-aware that she was violating at least 7 colonial protocols. Discovery changed everything. Rules existed before discovery. You opened it. Dr. Yasmin Okafor's accusation hung in the sterile air of the research lab. "It opened itself," Eliza corrected, gesturing to the crate now secured behind a quarantine field. "The moment I got inside the rover, the top simply dissolved. Temporary molecular destabilization, if I had to guess." The perfect sphere hovered inside the containment field, exactly 30 centimeters in diameter, emanating a soft blue light that pulsed in steady intervals. Beside it, arranged with clinical precision, lay the biological remains, a partial skeletal structure of something vaguely humanoid but wrong in subtle, unsettling ways. 6-fingered hands, a rib cage with bilateral asymmetry, a skull with eye sockets positioned for a field of vision humans could only dream of. Administrator Delacruz paced the length of the lab, his prosthetic leg whirring softly. "This changes the entire mission parameter. Nova was certified uninhabited. That's why the Expansion Authority gave us clearance to establish permanent settlements. Uninhabited now," Eliza said. "Whatever species left this has been gone for millennia." "You don't know that," Delacruz countered. "For all we know, they're watching us right now, wondering why we're disturbing their burial sites, their storage facilities, their garbage dumps." Dr. Okafor adjusted her glasses. "The sphere is composed of an unknown material. It's radiating energy in a controlled pattern, but our instruments can't identify the type of energy. It could be a recording device, a beacon, a weapon, or a message," Eliza interjected. "Look at how it's positioned relative to the remains. This wasn't random. This was deliberate placement." The administrator's shoulders slumped. "I have 5,000 colonists building homes, planting crops, establishing lives. What am I supposed to tell them? Sorry, we might be squatting on someone else's planet?" Eliza was about to respond when the sphere pulsed more intensely, and a holographic projection materialized above it. Three-dimensional glyphs rotated slowly in the air, complex, interlocking symbols that shifted like living things. "It's responding to our presence," Okafor breathed. "Knows we're here." 3 days later, the colony buzzed with rumors. Dela Cruz had attempted to contain the information, but in a community of scientists, engineers, and their families, secrets had a half-life measured in hours. Eliza found herself alternately treated as hero and pariah as she walked through the prefabricated corridors of the colony hub. The xenolinguistics team had made remarkable progress with the glyphs. Dr. Sanjay Mehta, whose algorithms had once decoded forgotten Earth languages from fragmentary evidence, had determined that the symbols operated on a mathematical principle. "It's elegant," he explained as he guided Eliza through the visualization chamber. "The glyphs aren't just symbols, they're equations. Each one represents a concept expressed as a mathematical relationship." The holographic display showed the rotating figures, now color-coded and annotated with human translations. "This cluster," he continued, pointing to a complex arrangement near the center, "we believe represents their concept of species or civilization. And this sequence that keeps repeating, we think it's a name, their name. What were they called?" Eliza asked. "We're rendering it as the Ascended, though that's an approximation. The actual concept implies a species that evolved beyond physical form." Eliza studied the patterns. "And what about this section? The one that appears after the chronological marker?" Sanjay hesitated. "That's less clear, but based on energy patterns and contextual placement, we believe it's a warning." The door to the visualization chamber slid open, and Okafor entered, followed by Dela Cruz and a woman Eliza didn't recognize. Tall, with the unmistakable bearing of military training despite her civilian clothes. "Dr. Chen," Dela Cruz said, his voice formal. "This is Director Harper from the Colonial Security Division. She arrived on this morning's supply shuttle." Harper nodded curtly. "We need to discuss the security implications of your discovery, Doctor, particularly in light of what we've found at the other sites." Eliza blinked. "Other sites? You didn't think yours was the only one, did you?" Harper's smile didn't reach her eyes. "We've identified 17 similar crates across Nova's northern hemisphere in the past 72 hours, all containing spheres, all with remains, all broadcasting the same message. A distributed network," Sanjay whispered. "They wanted to ensure the message survived, regardless of what happened to individual nodes. And we've detected something else," Harper continued. "Energy signatures. Deep beneath the surface. Miles down. Whatever technology left these spheres, it's still active." Eliza felt a chill run through her. "What does the warning say, Sanjay?" The linguist glanced at Harper, who nodded slightly. "As best we could translate," he said, "they're coming back." The expedition to the subsurface complex was assembled with military precision. Harper insisted on a small team. Herself, Eliza, Okafor, 2 security specialists, and a quantum engineer named Reza Kapoor, whose expertise with exotic energy systems might prove useful. The entrance they discovered wasn't designed for human use. A vertical shaft, perfectly circular, descended into darkness, its walls composed of the same seamless material as the crates. Harper's team deployed a specialized drilling platform that clung to the shaft walls like a spider, carrying them downward at a measured pace. 1 kilometer, reported Teresa Santos, one of the security specialists, checking her instruments. Still no end in sight. Eliza studied the shaft walls as they descended. Faint patterns were etched into the surface. More of the mathematical glyphs, but subtly different from those projected by the sphere. "These are older," she noted. "The linguistic structure is less evolved. We're moving backward through their history, or forward," Okafor countered. "If the Ascended evolved beyond physical form, perhaps their language evolved toward simplicity rather than complexity." The platform suddenly slowed, then stopped. Ahead, the shaft opened into a vast chamber that defied human architectural understanding. Spaces flowed into one another without clear boundaries. Surfaces curved in ways that suggested non-Euclidean geometry, and structures hung in apparent defiance of gravity. "My God," breathed Kapoor. "It's a manufacturing facility." He was right. As they cautiously moved through the alien space, they recognized the purpose, if not the specifics. Assembly lines without beginning or end. Storage systems that seemed to phase partially out of conventional spacetime. And at the center, a massive spherical chamber pulsing with the same blue energy as the discovered artifacts. "This is what's been powering the spheres," Okafor said, consulting her instruments. "It's been running for thousands of years, waiting." Harper approached a console-like structure. "Can we interface with it? Learn what they were building here." Interfacing with alien technology is exactly what every first contact protocol warns against, Eliza objected. "We're well past protocols, Dr." Harper replied coldly. Whatever the Ascended were afraid of, it was serious enough for them to abandon an entire planet and leave behind a warning system. "I need to know what we're facing." Kapoor hesitated. "I might be able to create a buffer system, something that can read their data without fully connecting to our networks." "Do it," Harper ordered. As Kapoor worked, Eliza explored the perimeter of the chamber, documenting everything with her scanner. The facility had been abandoned in haste. Tools, or what she assumed were tools, lay where they had been dropped. Partially completed components waited on assembly platforms, frozen in time. "I've got something," Kapoor called out. "A data stream. It's massive. Compressed information, densely packed. I'm only catching fragments," but he stopped abruptly, his face draining of color. "What is it?" Harper demanded. "They weren't manufacturing," he whispered. "They were running." The briefing room in the colony's administrative complex was filled to capacity. Department heads, security personnel, and key scientists sat in tense silence as Harper and Delacruz presented what they'd learned. The Ascended weren't the first intelligent species on Nova, Harper explained, her voice clinical. "They were invaders, colonists like us. They arrived approximately 200,000 years ago and established settlements across the planet." Holographic images from the subsurface facility flickered above the central table. The original inhabitants were a species we're calling the Progenitors. Based on biological samples preserved in the facility, they were silicon-based life forms that evolved in Nova's high-pressure, deep ocean trenches. They possessed a collective consciousness and advanced bioengineering capabilities. When the Ascended arrived, the Progenitors initially remained hidden, observing the newcomers. Eliza took over. The Ascended had no idea the planet was already inhabited. They built cities, established infrastructure, and began adapting the environment to better suit their physiology. It was only after decades of settlement that they discovered the Progenitors, and that's when everything went wrong, Delacruz added grimly. "The data we've recovered suggests the Progenitors viewed the Ascended as an infection, a biological contaminant disrupting the planet's natural systems. They launched what the Ascended records describe as a purification campaign." Harper nodded. "The facility we discovered was part of a desperate defensive effort. The Ascended were technologically advanced, but the Progenitors had the advantage of having evolved on Nova. They could manipulate the planet itself, trigger earthquakes, alter atmospheric composition, even accelerate viral evolution to target the Ascended biology. So the Ascended lost," someone said from the back of the room. "Not exactly," Eliza corrected. "The Ascended did what the name we've given them suggests. They transcended their physical forms. The facility was manufacturing technology to upload their consciousness into a substrate that existed beyond conventional matter. They abandoned their bodies to escape extinction. Before they departed, Harper continued, they left behind the warning system we've discovered. The spheres were designed to activate when another spacefaring species arrived on Nova. The message wasn't they're coming back, at least not exactly. A more accurate translation would be, they never left. A heavy silence fell over the room. The progenitors are still here, Delacruz said quietly. Dormant, perhaps, but the increased seismic activity we've recorded over the past month, the unexplained magnetic anomalies, the atmospheric fluctuations, all consistent with the patterns the Ascended documented before the progenitors attacked. We're waking them up, Eliza concluded, just like the Ascended did. The colony council voted to evacuate. Harper had already requested emergency extraction vessels from the Expansion Authority. They would abandon the settlement, mark Nova as hostile, and quarantine the entire Kepler 442 system. Eliza couldn't accept it. We're making the same mistake the Ascended made, she argued in Delacruz's office. Running away rather than attempting communication. The Ascended were far more advanced than we are, Delacruz countered. If they couldn't find peaceful coexistence with the progenitors, what chance do we have? The Ascended were terraforming before they even knew the progenitors existed. They were altering ecosystems, introducing foreign organisms, reshaping the planet to suit themselves. Of course, the progenitors saw them as a threat. Eliza paced the small office. We have an advantage the Ascended didn't. We know the progenitors are here. We can approach them differently. That's a naive perspective, Doctor. The progenitors eliminated an entire civilization because they were contaminants. What do you think they'll make of us? We don't know, that's why they attacked. We're interpreting fragmentary records left by one side of conflict. That's like judging Earth's history solely from the accounts of colonial powers. Delacruz sighed heavily. Harper's extraction ships arrive in 10 days. Until then, all colonists are restricted to the settlement perimeter. That's final. But it wasn't. That night, Eliza assembled a small team of like-minded colleagues, Okafor, Sanjay, and a marine biologist named Nakamura who specialized in extremophile life forms. They took a research submersible designed for Nova's deep ocean exploration and headed for the planet's largest trench, where the Ascended records indicated the primary progenitor nexus had been located. This is either first contact or suicide, Nakamura commented as their vessel descended through increasingly pressurized waters. Possibly both. The progenitors evolved to survive here, Eliza replied. They understand this planet in ways we never could. If we're going to share Nova with them, we need to meet them where they live, not expect them to accommodate us. At 8 kilometers below the surface, their submersible's external sensors detected unusual energy patterns, rhythmic fluctuations similar to those emitted by the spheres, but vastly more powerful. Look at the sea floor, Okafor whispered in awe. Spread below them was a vast network of crystalline structures, pulsing with bioluminescence. Fluid patterns flowed through transparent conduits, carrying information or energy, or perhaps both. It was a civilization built not of steel and concrete, but of living silicon compounds perfectly adapted to the crushing pressures of the deep. It's beautiful, Sanjay breathed. Activate the communication array, Eliza instructed. Send the first contact package we prepared, mathematical sequences, elemental tables, and the conceptual apology. Nakamura looked up from his console. Something's approaching. Multiple somethings. Through the submersible's reinforced viewport, they watched as crystalline structures detached from the sea floor and rose toward them. Not vessels, but the progenitors themselves. Colonial organisms composed of silicon matrices, each one as large as their submersible. They're surrounding us, Okafor reported tensely. The crystalline entities began to pulse in synchronized patterns. The submersible sensors translated the energy fluctuations as data streams. Dense, complex, and utterly alien. They're communicating, Sanjay said, his fingers flying over his console. Not with words or symbols, but with pure mathematical concepts. It's like they think in equations. Can you respond? Eliza asked. I'm trying, but their conceptual framework is so different. They don't understand individual consciousness. To them, we must appear as bizarre as a single cell claiming to be separate from the body. Something bumped against the hull, a gentle contact, then another. The crystalline entities were touching the submersible, their surfaces flowing slightly to conform to the human vessel's contours. They're analyzing us, Nakamura realized. Try to understand what we are. Warning alarms suddenly blared through the cabin. Hull integrity compromised, the system announced. Pressure containment failing. They're not attacking, Eliza said, studying the readings. They're integrating. Try to incorporate us into their network. Okafor's eyes widened. The Ascended. They weren't destroyed, they were assimilated. The Progenitors tried to add them to their collective consciousness, but the Ascended perceived it as an attack. And now they're trying to do the same to us, Nakamura said grimly. Water began to seep through microscopic breaches in the hull. The pressure at this depth would crush them instantly if the structure failed completely. Sanjay, Eliza said urgently, can you communicate one concept clearly? Individual choice. Consent. The idea that assimilation must be voluntary. The linguist worked frantically. I'm trying to express it mathematically. The concept that 1 plus 1 doesn't have to equal a single 2. That separate entities can exist in relationship without losing their distinct identities. The water leaking into the cabin abruptly stopped. The crystalline entities withdrew slightly, their pulsing patterns changing rhythm. I think they're processing, Sanjay said. This may be an entirely new concept to them. Keep communicating, Eliza urged. Show them how diversity creates strength, how different perspectives lead to innovation. Show them Earth's ecosystems, how separate species form networks of mutual benefit. 4 tense minutes. Sanjay transmitted mathematical representations of symbiotic relationships, cooperative networks, and consent-based interactions. The crystalline entities remained motionless, their internal patterns shifting in increasingly complex ways. Finally, one of the entities approached again. Instead of attempting to breach the hull, it extended a crystalline tendril that interfaced with the submersible's external communication array. The vessel's speakers emanated a sound. Not language, but a harmonic vibration that somehow conveyed meaning directly to their minds that we have been alone. Always alone. Others came. We tried to welcome them into the collective. They resisted. Confusion. Pain. Separation. They didn't understand that the Ascended wanted to remain separate beings, Eliza realized. The concept of individual consciousness was alien to them. You're like the others. Separate. Divided. But you seek understanding. This is new. We want to share this world with you, Eliza responded. Not as one consciousness, but as partners. Different, but connected. The harmonic vibration shifted. Show us this. Partnership point 10 days later, when Harper's extraction vessels entered Nova's atmosphere, they found not an abandoned colony, but a transformation in progress. The human settlement had been reconfigured, partially submerged in newly created inland seas that connected to the ocean trenches, allowing the progenitors access to the surface world for the first time. Eliza met the stunned security director at the new harbor that connected the human colony to the progenitor network. What have you done? Harper demanded. Created an alternative to extinction or evacuation, Eliza replied calmly. The progenitors never wanted to destroy the Ascended. They wanted to connect with them. It was a tragic misunderstanding between two radically different forms of consciousness. She gestured toward the harbor, where crystalline structures rose from the water, interfacing with human-built technology in ways that defied conventional engineering. They're teaching us how to live with this planet rather than on it. And we're teaching them about individual identity and the power of diverse perspectives. It's not perfect. We're still struggling to communicate effectively. But it's a beginning. Harper stared at the alien-human integration with undisguised suspicion. The Expansion Authority will never accept this. This planet was chartered for human colonization, not whatever this is. Eliza smiled. Then humanity will have to evolve beyond its own limited perspective, won't it? The universe isn't empty, Director. It's filled with intelligence that doesn't think like us, doesn't look like us, didn't evolve like us. If we can't learn to coexist, we'll end up like the Ascended, running away, abandoning our physical forms, or worse. And if the progenitors decide this experiment isn't working, if they turn on you, then we'll have failed not just ourselves, but every future encounter humanity has with alien intelligence. Eliza turned to face the security director fully. The Ascended thought technological transcendence was their only option. We're proving there's another way, one that doesn't require us to abandon our humanity, but to embrace its highest potential, the capacity to bridge differences and find common ground. In the harbor behind them, a human child stood on a floating platform, her small hand extended toward a crystalline tendril that rose gently from the water. As they touched, a soft blue luminescence spread between them. Not assimilation, but communication. Different consciousnesses finding a way to connect across the vast gulf of evolutionary divergence. Not conquerors. Not refugees. Something new.